Click here to subscribe our channel and do not forget to press the bell icon to get regular updates of our videos. Hello friends, good evening to all of you. So I am back with another video on Sociology optional subject for UPSC CSE mains examination. In this video we are going to cover the growth of urban settlements in India under industrialization and urbanization in India. So friend, please do this triage, share as much as possible so that more and more people will get benefited. Comment and like the video and ask any doubt if you have. And now you can also follow us on MB page, that is facebook.com/Unorthodox Academy. So friend, as you know that we are covering slot 4, that is work, economic life, agriculture and industry. And paper 1 we have finished topic 6, that is work and economic life. In paper 1 we have finished the topic rural and agrarian transformation in India, and now we are going to cover the growth of urban settlements in India. The evolution of modern industry in India is already covered. So first we understand the meaning of growth of urban settlements or urbanization in India. So sociology defines growth of urban settlement or urbanization as the movement of people from village to town or city where economic activities are centered around non-agricultural occupations such as trade, manufacturing, industry, and management. Broadly speaking, in order to explain the process of urbanization, we have to discuss the following 3 aspects. So basically, there are 3 aspects of urbanization. The first is the demographic, spatial aspects of urbanization, which deals with the shift of people from rural to urban areas, population density in urban areas, and change in pattern of land use from agriculture to non-agriculture activities. Economic aspect of urbanization relate to the change from agriculture to non-agriculture occupation. As cities have been the centers of diverse economic opportunities, they attract people from rural areas. This attraction pulls a significant sections of rural population to the urban areas. Rural poverty, backwardness of agriculture economic, and the destruction of cottage and small industries also push villagers to urban areas. These pull and push factors of migrations play an important role in the process of urbanizations. Then we have the third aspect, that is the sociocultural aspects. So the sociocultural aspects of urbanization highlights the emerging heterogeneity in the urban areas. The city has generally been the meeting point of races and cultures. So now we see some features of urbanization in ancient and medieval India. So in the process of urbanization, various periods of Indian history has distinctive spatial, economic, religious and socio-cultural and political features. So their features are described here under 3 broad headings. The first is the political, demographic and spatial factors. The early process of urbanization had their close relationship with the rise and fall of sponsoring political regimes and cultural history of India. Indie cities emerged in those periods mainly based on political considerations. The composition of these towns was built around the ruler and his kinsmen and followers, whose principal interests were centered on agriculture activities in their vicinity and the surplus they could extract from these. So the fortification in the form of girdles of walls and defensive ditches was an important physical feature of the traditions at towns. The town planning of ancient cities not only took note of the needs of defense but also of settlements of various castes in separate wards and the location of different activities connected with manufacturing, commerce, trade, religion, recreation, administration and justice. So now we see the second aspect, that is the economic. So in spite of the rise and fall of the political powers and shifting religious biases, the social and economic institution of traditional cities has shown certain stability. Guild formation was an important feature of traditional towns. Merchants and craftsmen were organized into guilds called shreni. In those towns there were the guilds based on the occupations of one caste shreni, and also the guilds based on the different cases and different occupations called puga. So Rao points out that the guilds performed important functions in the traditional towns in terms of banking, trading, manufacturing and to limited extent judicial. So now we see the third aspect, that is the religious and socio-cultural aspect. So basically the authorities of traditional urban centers patronize particular religion or sects. This had been delineated in the social organization and culture of towns. For example, Patliputra reflected the Brahminical Hindu civilization under the rule of Chandragupta Maurya, while under Ashokan rule, Buddhism flourished. Similarly, the Islamic civilization was converted by the Muslim rule in the imperial capitals of Delhi, Lucknow, and Hyderabad, and in the other places. So the traditional towns were heterogeneous in terms of the multiplicity of the religion, sectarian, and caste groups. Trained specialists like florist, tailor were to be found only in big towns. Each ethnic or religious group was governed by its own customary laws. The caste and the occupational guilds also had their own laws sanctioned by the political authority. So now we see the features of urbanization in early colonial period. So with the coming of European colonial traders in India, the process of urbanization entered into a new phase. Cities grew up in the coastal areas as ports cum trading centers. In the 17th and 18th centuries, European trading posts were established initially for trading purposes. As the British power grew in the 19th century, Calcutta, Bombay, and Madras became the political centers too. Indeed, in this period, with the introductions and development of advanced technological knowledge, we find the emergence of new economic and political institutions, new mode of communication such as telegraph, railways, advanced systems of roads and waterways. The process of urbanization became smooth and widened the structure of economic opportunity and widened the social horizon of pupils. So then in the 19th century, though the process of urbanization grew in a modest way, the countryside suffered from the gradual process of the destructions of the cottage and small industries in the rural areas. In these situations, the new economic opportunity structures pulled a significant sections of populations to the urban areas. Many of the artisans became unemployed. Hence, the displaced rural artisans and laborers were also pushed to urban areas for employment. The late 19th century, however, witnessed the large-scale migrations of the rural labor force, especially from Bihar and eastern United Province, towards the jute mills of Calcutta and other industrial destinations. To avail the new economic opportunities, many people migrated either temporarily or permanently to the urban areas. So, with the spread of education, the institutional arrangements of the urban centers also changed. The educated people joined the bureaucracy and also took up jobs as teachers, journalists, lawyers, and so on. They brought about a new worldview. The urban centers gradually grow up to the centers of new social and political ideas, diverse economic activities, and of heterogeneous populations. So the new process of urbanization presented various economic opportunities and a scope of occupational and social mobility. It was only the upper caste and class people who were able to make use of these opportunities. So now we see the growth of urban settlements in contemporary India. So the new process of urbanization, which began with the advent of the British, received a momentum at the beginning of 20th century. The process of this urbanization has some distinctive features. So, as India is passing through a phase of rapid urbanization in the contemporary phase of the transition of society, the modern urban centers perform diversified function in terms of economic, administrative, and political, and so on. So here it is very difficult to classify the towns and cities in terms of single activity. Generally, people classify urban areas on the basis of some prominent economic and political features. For example, people mention that there are historical cities like Delhi, Calcutta, Benares, Lucknow, etc. Industrial cities like Ghaziabad, Modinagar, Kanpur, Jamshedpur, Bhilai, etc. Religious cities like Mathura, Haridwar, Madurai, Allahabad, etc. Cities reputed for filmmaking like Bombay and Madras have a special appeal for a villager or a small town dweller. So, in sociology, we discuss the pattern of urbanization in terms of its democratic, spatial, and economic and sociocultural aspect, as you know. But before we can take up these aspects, let us also briefly explain how we define a town in the Indian context. So, any place which satisfies the following criteria of a minimum of 5,000 persons, then at least 75 of the working occupations are non-agriculture, a density of not less than 1,000 person per square mile, and a place should have certain industrial areas, large housing settlement, place of tourist importance, and civic amenities. So these are the conditions which define a town in Indian context. So first we see the spatial pattern. So basically the spatial diversities have marked the Indian urban scenario. These disparities emerge mainly due to regional disparities, imbalanced populations concentration, and sometimes because of the change in the census definition of urban areas. So in this context, we need to mention about two concepts, namely over-urbanization and sub-urbanization. Town or urban areas have certain limitations in accommodating populations, providing civic amenities or catering to such need as schooling, hospital, etc. So beyond certain optimum capacities, it becomes difficult for the town administrations to provide facilities for the increasing populations. Bombay and Calcutta are the such example of these cities, among others, which have urban populations growth beyond their capacities to manage. This feature refers to over-urbanization. So closely related to over-urbanization of a town, a feature called sub-urbanization also exists. So when towns as overcrowded by population, it may result in sub-urbanization. Delhi is a typical example among others where sub-urbanization trend is taking place around it. So we understand the suburbanization. So basically suburbanization means urbanization of rural areas around the towns characterized by the following features. The first feature is the increase in the urban non-agricultural use of land. Then there is inclusion of surrounding areas of towns within its municipal limits, and then intensive communications of all types between town and its surrounding areas. So now we see the economic aspects. So according to Mill and Baker, urbanization is a natural and inevitable consequence of economic development. Urbanization accompanies economic development because economic development entails a massive shift of labor and other inputs from predominantly rural sector to those predominantly urban. The National Commission Urbanization of India recognizes the economic importance of the Indian cities and towns. It considers urbanization as a catalyst for economic development, and that the towns and cities, despite their problems, are for the millions and millions of our people the road to a better future. So when we examine the various cities in India, we find that some cities have come up during the last 80 years in places where there was nothing but forest earlier. One of the first steel cities in India, like Jamshedpur in Bihar, has provided employment to a large number of people, including the Santals. So these tribals who were relatively isolated earlier have come into contact with a wide section of Indian population coming from different regions, speaking different languages, and so on. So besides Jamshedpur, three more steel towns have emerged after independence. These are Bhilai in Madhya Pradesh, Rourkela in Orissa, and Durgapur in West Bengal. So emergence of these steel factories has brought about not only property but has also led to modifications of the whole social scenario of these areas. So according to Srinivas, areas which were socio-economically backward have now become more prosperous and cosmopolitan. So while talking about the economic features of urbanization in contemporary India, occupational diversification and migration appear to be the key aspects. So the degree of urban industrialization and plant development through the 5 years plans could not bring only a significant shift in occupational structure in India. The percentage of Indian labor force in agriculture remained static between 1901 and 1971. In the said period, 69.4% of the total labor force was in agriculture respectively. Though the percentage of urban population increased substantially during this period, there has not been corresponding areas in the percentage of the labor force in the urban manufacturing, construction and service sectors. So the proportion of urban population engaged in the primary sector comprising cultivation, household industry, mining, quarrying and fishing showed an increase, that in the secondary sector comprising manufacturing and processing showed decrease contrary to expectations. The tertiary sector comprising commerce and services showed a slight recovery. Even with the urban sector, there is a distinct traditional or rural component of occupation which is significant. This brings out the still persisting and unobserved rural element in the urban sector. mostly in the periphery of large urban settlements and in the medium and small towns with a strong agriculture base. It appears that the urban commercial sector respond more to urbanization than did the industrial sector in terms of working population. There is a widespread unemployment among the unskilled and other marginal workers in most of the cities. Again, unemployment among educated classes in urban areas is a peculiar feature in Indian society. It is estimated that 46% of total educated and unemployed are reported to be concentrated in the four major metropolitan cities in India. So now we see the socio-cultural aspect of growth of urban settlement. So urbanization has been viewed as an important force of social change in India. This process has on the one hand meant economic growth, political change, new values and new attitudes. It reflects also the elements of continuity between rural and urban social structures. So in the process of urbanization, the towns and cities of India have achieved heterogeneous character in terms of ethnicity, caste, race, class and culture. So in the urban areas, there has always been coexistence of different cultures. Study shows that though various ethnic and or caste groups have adjusted themselves with each other in the city, they have also tried to maintain their traditional identity. The migrants have maintained distinctive cultural traditions in the town. Various migrants have maintained their own cultural identity. So N.K. Bose pointed out that the migrants tend to cluster around people with whom they have linguistic, local or regional caste and ethnic ties. Then Jagannath and Halda in their study on the pavement dwellers in Calcutta shows that they retain close ties with the kingship and caste groups for socializing and transmitting or receiving information from the village. Thus, cultural pluralism has been an important socio-cultural dimension of the urbanites. So according to Srinivas, many of the Indian towns have a mixed character, that is, they are capital cities, centers of trade and commerce, important railway junctions, etc. In these types of cities, we find a core area which consists of the old inhabitants. This area is the oldest in the city, and on its fringe, we find the new immigrants. So the pattern of residence of this core population shows a close relation to language, caste and religion. Bombay is cited as an example of this type of city. Lynch also points out that in many Indian cities, especially in the traditional cities like Agra, neighborhoods have remained homogeneous in terms of caste and religious group. There, the untouchables Jat of caste is concentrated in particular areas called mohallas or wards, but changes have taken place mostly because of politicization, spread of education and occupational diversification. But Dinesh D'Souza noted that in the planned city like Chandigarh, neighborhood has not been developed on the basis of ethnicity, common interests and other similarities. So in the city, the religious activities, friendship and educational ties are often outside one's own neighborhood. So thank you guys for listening and watching this video. Thank you.